There might be fewer players, but there's never a lack of exciting action. This is the statewide Idaho 8-Man Prepcast with Brandon Baney and Paul Kingsbury.
Right, it's another edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast from IdahoSports.com, brought to you by the Idaho Division of Public Health. You know the drill by now. I'm Brandon Baney. He is Hoenike. We're too cool for Paul Kingsbury at this point.
Correct. Yes, correct. We've moved on from him. He's yesterday's news.
Yes, well, we're going to get to yesterday's news and also look ahead at the semifinal matchups in the 8-man ranks, because this is what we do each and every week. We break down all the big news from the 8-man football classification. You can get this podcast a couple of different ways, the audio only at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. Me personally, I have an Android phone, so I use what's called Podcast Addict. That's the Android app, but there's also Apple, there's Google, there's Spotify, etc. You can also catch the video of this podcast each and every week at the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page. Will, how are you?
You know, I'm doing good, and I've got to confess to something here right off the top. I especially as the season wears on, I like to give coaches a few weeks to kind of figure out who they are, who their teams are, and stuff like that. But as we get into the end of September and then through October, and then obviously now, I like to shoot coaches a lot of texts and just kind of see what's up. And we've got a fair number of coaches, not just fans, not just mom, dad, not just players. We've got a fair number of coaches that listen to us on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I know I've heard from a couple of coaches. I'm not going to name drop people here, but I same with you, Will. I've had feedback from coaches and athletic directors at 8-man schools, and so it's nice that we're able to put this together each and every week. And I have found that by far the 8-man fans are the most passionate and the most diehard of any fan following in the state of Idaho. So,
oh yeah, it's you think about it. You think about some of these towns like Idaho City, and I'm obviously not knocking Idaho City. What else is there to invest in there? Your kids, your youth, your school, your team. So man, when a lot of these communities, when there's a game, and it doesn't matter if it's, I've seen some volleyball games in 8-man gyms, small communities that, wow, there are a lot of people here for this game. And I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great time to support Idaho's smaller communities, and they all have great stories. And that's really what we want to do here, is bring those stories to the forefront. There was no bigger story in the 8-man game, I think, than last week's 1A D1 semifinal or a quarterfinal showdown between White Pine League rivals. And we'll put the bracket up on the screen so you can follow along on the video. But if we look here, the big matchup was number 5 Lapwai against number 4 Prairie. This is a matchup that Prairie won pretty handily in the regular season, but that's why they play the games. Lapwai 68-36 over Prairie. The Wildcats moving on to the semifinals. I will admit, I did not see this coming. I'm not sure anybody outside of Lapwai saw this coming, Will.
No, I certainly didn't see that margin coming. Had you told me Friday night that Lapwai won the game, it might have caused me to go, oh, wow, because, yeah, I expected Prairie to win that game. I freely admit that. But for Lapwai to go to Prairie and to put it on them by 32 points. Now, I get that Prairie did not have Brody Hasselstrom, and he's a fantastic football player, all-state candidate, could be a player of the year candidate in 1A D1. But that alone does not swing the difference from, a month earlier, Prairie beat Lapwai by about 30 points. So you cannot say that just taking one player out is the difference between Prairie winning by 30 and Prairie losing by 30. I think that Lapwai played, from all appearances and from everything that I've been told from people I've talked to, Lapwai played one heck of a football game. They played smart. They took care of the ball. And then Titus Year out, I know everybody loves the guy as a basketball player. He's got a Division I, commitment to go play hoops at the University of Idaho, and that in and of itself is incredible. But 500 yards of total offense and having a hand in 9 touchdowns against Prairie in Cottonwood. I mean, I don't care what you say. That's an amazing, amazing game.
Yeah, we think of Lapwai, and the first thing we think of is basketball, right? Not just boys basketball, but girls basketball. They're a powerhouse in both boys and girls basketball. That's always what we think of first when we think of Lapwai. And I saw a quote in the Lewiston Tribune. They talked to Lapwai's coach, Josh Layton, after the game, and he said, "Our boys aren't quite ready for basketball season yet."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that that's a very good way to put it, because when you're in that small town, when you put away your football gear, it's what's next. You know what I mean? It's these kids kind of go sport to sport to sport, because if they don't, if those kids don't play basketball, there isn't a basketball team. You know what I mean? And I'm saying that somewhat rhetorically, somewhat philosophically, but that's what kids in smaller communities in general do. There's obviously some exceptions, but in general, once basketball's over, you go straight into basketball, or once football's over, you go straight into basketball, maybe wrestling. Some communities have wrestling. And once that's over, you get ready for track or baseball. And that's just kind of how it goes. And the thing that I think a lot of people are learning, and I've certainly learned as the year went on, Titus Yearout is a fantastic athlete, period. Football, basketball, whatever sport. I think you could put a tennis racket in his hand and he'd be a fantastic tennis player. They've got a lot of really good athletes there. It's not a one-man team. We've talked about Mason Brown. We've talked about Cross Taylor. We've talked about Elias Yearout. There are others. And boy, every year they just seem to find a couple more. You know what I mean? It's amazing the quality of just pure athletes that Lapwai is able to put out on the field or on the court every year. It's fantastic.
They're bringing that run and gun style that they are known for in basketball out to the football field. And in an interesting note, they'll now play Raft River in the semifinals. Raft River played inside Holt Arena last week. Well, they saw Lapwai was coming, and they're like, we're going outside to try and neutralize this high-octane offense. That game's going to be played in Malta Saturday, and they're hoping, I think, that weather is on their side a little bit.
I get the whole, let's play it at the Kibbe Dome or let's play it at Holt Arena, control, give the kids the big game feel, control the controllables. But I'm also a big fan just in general of, let's get the community of Malta involved. And I know that, Malta to Pocatello, it's not like it's 500 miles by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also a heck of a lot easier to go right down the road 5 miles than it is a couple of hours. Or how long would that drive be? Hour and a half, maybe?
Yeah, on a bus, probably hour and a half. Yeah.
Okay. So, but you keep that thing in town. I really like that. Like from a Idaho sports standpoint, I'd love every game to be inside the Kibbe Dome or Holt Arena because they're fantastic setups. It's warm. You can control the weather. I mean, did you get to watch any of that Horseshoe Bend Kendrick game from Division II that Garrison and Jason were at? I mean, it was like they were in a monsoon the entire game. But from a fan standpoint, I just don't think you can be in an 8-man town. Wallace, for instance, cars lining the field and people walking up and down the sideline to cheer on their teams. I don't think you can't replicate that in the Kibbe Dome or Holt Arena. And for me as a fan, you can't beat it. I think that's way better, way more atmosphere, way more energy, even though, playing a game in a place like the Kibbe Dome may feel a little better, may look a little better. Give me the outdoor game on the small town field any day.
Let me unmute my mic. My dogs are barking in the background. Okay, let's talk about yeah. That happened. Let's talk about the other semifinal matchup that's coming up here with Raft River. They got past Potlatch 63-22. That was a game that was in Holt Arena, as we talked about on Saturday afternoon. I think we're finding out about this Raft River team. They can beat you a number of different ways.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the Oakley defense this season, and deservedly so, very much deservedly so. We've obviously talked about the Lapwai offense, deservedly so. Raft River is another team that defensively, you got to bring it against them. They can play, and they're going to bring some pressure, and it's not going to be an easy, you're not just going to play your typical 54-42 8-man game against them. You're going to have to put in your work. they're tough up front. Their defensive front is tough. They've got good linebackers and they've got some pretty good speed on the backside. And if they don't give you any holes, it's really tough to exploit those holes, right? So, that's one thing I think that you can always say about Chad Evans and his staff there at Raft River, as long as he's been there, which is 3-4 years now, I believe. And even before that, this isn't like some new revelation to Raft River. They play pretty good assignment football. They're pretty smart. They're pretty cagey. They don't blow a ton of assignments, and they're going to need to continue that against a Lapwai team that plays a little different style. They play a little bit different tempo, a little bit different rhythm, and they're going to have to continue to be smart. If it turns into a track meet, I think advantage Lapwai, honestly. If Raft River is able to slow Titus Young down, if they're able to contain him, if you go back to that 8-man classic, when Oakley played Lapwai, Titus Yearout went wild in the first half, and they had 26, 28 points in the first half. Oakley made a couple of adjustments. The heat kicked in a little bit, let's be honest, but they contained Yearout a little bit, made them a little bit more one-dimensional as a team in the second half, and they struggled a little bit. I think that's going to be Raft River's challenge. I think that they're going to need to try and find a way to take away some of kind of the helter-skelter, just crazy tempo, crazy rhythm, just the roll the ball out and let's play that Lapwai is so good at and they're so successful at. And it's not as easy as just saying, okay, we're going to do it. They're going to have to go out there and do it. Lapwai is not going to just let them. If they're able to kind of slow that down a little bit and make it a little bit more of a structured game, a little bit more of a system game, I think that's advantage Raft River.
Yeah, I like Raft River's ability also to run the ball and control the clock a little
Shorten
bit.
the game. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. 100% agreed.
Keep Lapwai off the field. So I will officially go Raft River. They've been my 1A D1 title pick all year. I can't abandon them now, nor would I. I really do believe that they are the better team than Lapwai, although it's been fun to watch Lapwai as well go on this run. The bottom half of the bracket kind of shook out the way we thought, right? Oakley with a win over a shorthanded Genesee team, 80-36. And then Butte County gets a win again over a shorthanded Notice team, 42-12. That was kind of the theme of your 8-man 3-star awards this week. A lot of key injuries across the 8-man landscape.
Yeah, depth matters. And we've talked about it before. It's such a huge factor in 8-man football. And Cy Wareham has an incredible first half for Genesee, and they're kind of trading punches with Oakley. Cy Wareham gets hurt, Oakley runs away. In my opinion, Oakley probably wins that game either way. But when you take out such a big contributor on both sides of the ball as Cy Wareham, that your razor thin margin for error for Genesee just evaporated. And likewise, you go down to that Notice Butte County game. Notice scored first. Notice had an early lead, and then Caden Clemens, the quarterback, gets hurt. They have to turn it over to a freshman, and Benny Guevara had played some on the season. But imagine, here you are in the quarterfinals at Holt Arena. It's the first quarter, and you're playing the number 3 team in the state. And that's what Notice had to deal with without their veteran leader at quarterback. So again, I think Butte County ultimately probably wins that game either way. I don't think it's 42-12. I don't think it's 42-12 by any stretch of the imagination. So give credit to Oakley and also to Butte County for seizing an advantage, recognizing it and taking that opportunity to win games and to advance, because that's the name of the game. But I guarantee you, Coach Woodland and Notice, and then Coach Podrabski and Genesee are both kind of, rubbing their temples a little bit, just saying, man, I wish I just could have had all my troops. I'd love to see what I could have done if I had all my troops.
Yeah, so I got to Holt Arena. I did the late game Saturday night, Skyline against Valley View, a 4A game. And so I got to Holt Arena Saturday at the very end of that Butte County Notice game. And I looked up at the scoreboard and I was like, wow, I mean, this kind of surprised me a little bit. And I actually saw Coach Woodland as he was walking out and got to talk to him a little bit. And he told me what happened. And I said, okay, this makes more sense to me now. So it really, really is unfortunate the way that went down for Notice. For Butte County, Drayton Miller, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Tyler Wanstrom, how about this day passing? 4 of 7. 4 of those completions went for touchdown, or 3 of those 4 completions went for touchdowns.
Yeah, I talked a little bit via text to Sam Thorngren, the head coach of Butte County, and he said we had to knock a little bit of the rust off, but he felt like they played a pretty good football game, and they did. They did play a good football game because Carter Woodland may have been out, but Aaron Jimenez wasn't. Carter Woodland wasn't out, and you go on down the list of the other really good noticed players that were there, and Butte County still found a way to put up 42 points on them. So, they got to knock the rust off a little bit, and now they go in and they'll take on Oakley in that next round, and that should be a heck of a football game. There are no two ways about it. That should be a really good, really competitive, really tough football game, and I think that most people would expect Oakley to win that football game, I think, just because we know a little bit more about Oakley than we do Butte County. But Coach Thorngren, he has some talent, he has some skill, he has some depth. They're going to be a formidable challenge, and I expect that to be a really good game in a postseason that so far hasn't had a lot of really good games. Most of the games have kind of turned out to be one-sided affairs. I think both these games this weekend could both be in that 36-32 type range where it's a bounce here, a missed tackle there, a great catch here, one of those types of games where one or two plays ultimately decide the outcome.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm going to lean Raft River, of course, and Oakley. I think those two teams advance to the championship as we look at the bracket. Oakley will play Butte County Saturday in Holt Arena, 4:00. I will be on the call for that game along with Paul Kingsbury. So we will have the call.
We do get to see Paul.
Yes, Paul's going to come out of the shadows just to when he doesn't have to put his face out there, right? This is when he can just put on the headset and talk. Then, sure, he's fine. So
nobody sees the Mountain Dew hat.
That's right. I will say one common theme of our Final Four: Raft River, Lapwai, Oakley, and Butte County all have multiple playmakers, right? We've talked about the versatility of each team, and I think that is a big key as to why those 4 teams are the teams that are still standing. If plan A goes out the window, if plan A gets hurt, well, plan B, C, and D are all ready to step up and contribute. Not that those other teams weren't, but the dynamic ability of multiple playmakers, I think, is what separates these 4 teams from the teams that aren't playing.
Yeah, I mean, for Lapwai, Titus Yearout missed a game earlier this year. They shifted some personnel around, and they won by 3 touchdowns. These are balanced teams with multiple playmakers, and especially when you're going up against some really good defenses, that's what you need to have. You cannot be a one-trick pony, and I don't know that any of these teams are one-trick ponies. I think that all of them have enough balance to be able to move the ball a little bit. Like I said, if we get into a track meet, I like Lapwai's chances. And on the other side, I think if it turns into a track meet, I think I like Oakley's chances. The slower the game is, I think Butte County and Raft River maybe get a little bit of an advantage, but that's why they blow the whistle and they give this little signal and the kicker kicks the ball and we play. Players ultimately decide what happens, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be so much fun. That's the 1A D1 ranks. Let's take a break. We'll hear from our sponsors at the Idaho Division of Public Health. We'll come back and set up what's happening in the 1A D2 ranks. We'll be back in just a moment here on the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
It's time to start planning for back to school. That's why I got my kids vaccinated for COVID-19. Kids 12 and older can get vaccinated. The vaccines have been researched and tested. They're safe and they work. And I hope everyone will choose to get vaccinated too.
It's the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast, IdahoSports.com. Brandon Baney with Will Hoenike. All right, Will, I'm going to put the 1A D2 bracket up on the screen here.
Can I throw my stat out first? I took a minute to look this up, and then I never even mentioned it in the last segment. I looked down and realized it.
Oh, right. Yes.
My trivia question, and you know the answer, so people who are listening or people who are watching, Lapwai's win over Prairie on Friday, they won by 32 points, okay? The last time Prairie lost a football game by more than 32 points was October 19th, 2012. Nearly a decade. Troy beat them 54-16. before that, and they haven't lost a lot of football games, period. But Oakley by 2, Valley by 14, Oakley by 4, Salmon River by 4, Lapwai by 14, Notice by 2. A lot of tight football games. So what happened to Prairie last week, it doesn't happen very much. And I guarantee you, Ryan Hasselstrom, his staff, and his kids, it stings a little bit because they're not used to having that happen to them.
They are the team that's used to pushing people around. It doesn't happen often where they get pushed. So that was a great stat, and your interns did a great job researching that for you.
Yeah, my extensive research staff.
Yeah. Right. Okay, well, I'm going to put up the 1A D2 bracket up here on the board. Kendrick won over Horseshoe Bend 48-8. Castleford beat Rockland 58-8. Carrie beat Mullen St. Regis 60-14. Dietrich beat Camas County 46-12. Again, games that didn't have much in terms of drama. A Final Four that I think a lot of people maybe would have predicted coming in, with the exception of Castleford. I don't think the Wolves were on a lot of people's radar. Give me your breakdown of this. I'm going to step out for just a second because somebody keeps ringing my doorbell and it's driving my dogs crazy. That's why I have to keep muting my mic. So I'll be back in 2 seconds, and you just kind of take a look at the bracket.
I'll babble for a few seconds, sure.
Yeah, okay, just hang tight. I'm going to be right back.
Okay. You never know what's going to happen here on the 8-man Prepcast. Starting at the top of the bracket, that Kendrick Horseshoe Bend game. Horseshoe Bend was somewhat limited. Colton Meyer, their outstanding two-way, quarterback and defender, he was limited. Did not play the whole game. Did have a touchdown run in the game. But you go to the other side. I think Zane Hobart's team did really an outstanding job dealing with the elements. It was an extremely inclement night. It was windy. It was rainy. It was not a pleasant evening. Was not a fit night for man nor beast, as the saying goes. And all Kendrick did was produced. Ty Kep did a great job. Jagger and Sawyer Hewitt were both outstanding. The lines, I thought, both lines, the offensive and the defensive line for Kendrick, were both tremendous. I was really, really, really impressed with how Kendrick handled the circumstances and really, frankly, kind of took it to a pretty good Horseshoe Bend team. Then you slide down one line, you got Castleford and you got Rockland. And same thing. I think that there were some matchups here where things could have gone different ways if the favorites allowed it to happen. Kendrick did not allow it to happen, but this one in particular, Rockland presents some matchup problems for a lot of teams with Gavin Perman at quarterback and Teague Matthews and some other good receivers, Wes Matthews. But Castleford did not allow that to materialize. And Eric Taylor played an outstanding game for Castleford, and they took care of business. And I think some people have been waiting for them to maybe regress, for lack of a better word, and they just haven't done it. They've just continued to play good, solid football. And then you get down to the bottom half of the bracket. The separation in that Carrie Mullen St. Regis game, I think, caught a lot of people by surprise. In talking to Stetson Spooner, the head coach for Mullen St. Regis, he essentially said, look, we just ran out of gas in the fourth quarter, and Carrie is a tremendous football team. And Lane Kirkland and his staff, reverting back to me now, they did a really fantastic job in limiting the explosive plays from Luke Trogdon and Adam Ball, and forced them to try and go elsewhere to try and find big plays and big moments, and it just didn't happen enough. And then Connor Simpson goes out and rushes for 300 yards, and it's almost an oh, by the way, and then you go down to that fourth game, and I was thinking about this as I was writing my 3 stars story, Brandon. It's really remarkable when you line up on almost a weekly basis. Dietrich's kind of been an oh, by the way team in a lot of contexts, but when you look at who's beaten them this year, they've lost 3 games. All 3 teams are still playing: Carrie, Castleford, and Butte County. You could argue they could have, if not should have, beaten Carrie. The Castleford game was, I think, 14 points. So it was by no means a laugher. And then the Butte County game was a little bit ugly. But teams are entitled to one of those. But when you get to this point in the season and every team that you lost to is still playing, that means you're a heck of a football team. And I think Dietrich is, and maybe I'm drinking a little bit of the Kool-Aid, but I'm not ruling out a repeat. Dietrich won it all last year. And I think they're very capable of winning 2 more games and winning it again this year.
I guess the one wild card in this group is Kendrick, right? Because the other 3 all come from the same league, so we kind of know how it shakes out. Kendrick's kind of the unknown here. What really stood out to me, Will, was the defensive performances. Right, you talk about Horseshoe Bend, Rockland, Mullins, St. Regis, and even Camas County last week against North Gem proved that they have offenses that are capable of putting up the points. So we talk about in the 8-man game, right? If you've got a really good defense, that puts you almost a pace and a half ahead of everybody else, right?
Yeah. And I was talking to another coach. I was talking to Monty Madrell, the head coach from Lewis County this week, just kind of idly, shooting the breeze back and forth. And he made a point that I think is a really prudent point that, you see some of these, giving up 40, giving up 50, giving up 60, and you think, oh man, 8-man defenses can't play. Well, remember, they're playing on the same size field as Eagle, as Coeur d'Alene, as Highland, and they're doing it with 3 fewer players. So when you look at some of these games, like let's use the Carrie and then Mullins St. Regis game as an example. When you're trying to stop Caleb Ball, Adam Ball, Luke Trogdon, Floyd Nelson, Blake Layton, when you're trying to stop all those players, all those weapons with only 8 defenders, you've got to be pretty dang good. You've got to be pretty dang smart, and you've got to be pretty dang disciplined to do it. And in every one of these games, in every one of those games that you mentioned, for Kendrick to hold Horseshoe Bend to 8, and I don't care about the weather. The weather was terrible. There's no question about it. But Kendrick was good enough to score 40 points. But they held Horseshoe Bend to 8, right? Castleford held Rockland to 8. Okay? These defenses, you're right. They were fantastic last week. They were really good, and they're going to have to be even better this week if they want their team to advance.
Yeah, so if we look at the matchup on the bottom, Carrie against Dietrich, Saturday in Holt Arena at 1 p.m. So again, this will be a game that Paul and I are doing. We're going to do Carrie Dietrich first, and then it's Oakley, Butte County after that. That's a pretty good doubleheader for a Saturday in Holt Arena.
Really good.
Between you and me, that's a lot better show than anything Idaho State University could put on inside that dome.
Oh man, let's hope that no Bengals are watching this right now.
Okay, so let's talk about that matchup first, right? Dietrich almost beat Carrie in the regular season finale. Came down to the very end of the game. Carrie holds on to win by 2. How do you see this rematch going? If you think about it, Dietrich has really it used to be one-sided, right? Carrie used to kind of put Dietrich away like all the other teams, but just in the last 2 years, Dietrich has kind of swung that pendulum, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why this game should be a heck of a lot different from the first game, which was very even. Both teams really, put their heads down and went to battle, and it was a game that was on Idaho Sports, and I loved watching it. It was a great football game. These are kids and programs that know each other well. It seems like they play 2 times a year. I mean, I'm being somewhat facetious when I say it, but it feels like they play twice every year. And Lord only knows how many times they see themselves in, each other at camps over the summer and different sports and different events. They know each other. There aren't going to be any tricks. There aren't going to be too many surprises. It's going to be about who executes better and, frankly, who plays better defense, who manages their gaps, who manages their spacing, who makes the tackles. The team that does a better job at that, I think, wins the game. I really like the way that Dietrich has been playing. I think they played really well, especially the last couple of weeks. But even, in almost beating Carrie, you're 1 pass away. You have a pass intercepted inside the 5-yard line. If that ball even falls incomplete, you probably have you have a great opportunity to punch it in and still win the game. like I said, I'm gonna put this down to, whichever team tackles better, whichever team plays better fundamental defense, because they both can get it done on offense. They both can. They both have weapons. They both have playmakers. So the impetus is going to be on the other team to make stops. It's not going to be on the offense to figure out how to score. It's going to be on the defense to stop the offenses. And whichever team does better is going to be the team that wins.
I go with Carrie here. That's my official on the record pick. I haven't picked Carrie in a while, right? I picked Mullen St. Regis last week. We saw how that went. Carrie is so good. And Lane Kirkland is the kind of coach that doesn't forget, right? He doesn't forget how it felt last year when Dietrich defeated Carrie. And he makes sure that his players don't forget how that felt.
Yeah. And one thing that always plays to Carrie's benefit, to Carrie's advantage, and it's not completely applicable here because Dietrich won the state championship last year over Carrie, but Carrie plays in these games every year. I'm not going to say that playing in a state semifinal is not a big deal to those Carrie players, because obviously it is, but they've been there before. They've tasted the water. They've seen the scenery. It's not going to be too big of a moment for them. I don't think it's going to be too big of a moment either for Dietrich, but Carrie in general, they're used to it. It's almost like, when we write these preview articles for IdahoSports.com back in July and August, we can just start the Carrie article by saying in mid-November, they're going to be playing. The question is who and where, because it's what they do. They know how to win. And I think that's a testament to Lane Kirkland. I think it's a testament to the community that they're able to do it year after year and keep that train going. It's not easy to do in 8-man football. Pick me an 8-man football team, and I can probably find you a time when they weren't very good. And for Carrie, we have to go back a ways to find a lull in that program's performance.
Yeah, certainly. And for Carrie, they're going to move to the 1A D1 level next year. I hope they keep this rivalry game with Dietrich on the schedule, because it's
absolutely. And there's some we've talked about it on this podcast. There's some questions as far as the Max Preps rankings. If the Division I classification hangs on to the current format, would Carrie be better off picking up a game against, say, Idaho City or Wilder or someone like that, a D1 team, instead of playing Dietrich? Would it be better for their rankings within the Max Preps ranking formula? That may be the case. The better football game is Carrie Dietrich, and that ain't going to change.
Right. The matchup on top is really intriguing to me. Kendrick and Castleford. I think I'm leaning Kendrick here. They've kind of been a dark horse team of ours all year. Paul Kingsbury, way back in August, picked Kendrick as his 1A D2 state champion. And Castleford's solid, right? They're steady.
Yep.
You know what you're getting from them. Kendrick has the ability to be really explosive. And I kind of like this game's going to move inside now. We're going to move into the Kibbe Dome in Moscow, Saturday, 1 p.m. That's Pacific time. So for Castleford fans, it's going to be 12 o'clock your time, 1 o'clock in Kendrick. 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock in Castleford, 1 o'clock in Moscow. So I like Kendrick because of their explosive ability. Not to say that Castleford isn't explosive, but Kendrick has shown at times this year that they can get out and put up a basketball number if they want to.
They can. They're very skilled. They're very talented. And I think Paul's been picking Kendrick to win the 1A2 division championship since 1A Division 2 became a thing. I swear to God, I think he picks Kendrick to win it all every year. I'm hoping that Zane Hobart is complimenting him and compensating him with Kendrick hoodies or something at least, because Paul is on that Kendrick bandwagon just about every year. And it's justifiable. Skill-wise, they're there with everybody. The thing that they've had to do is they've had to prove that if they get punched in the mouth, they can stand back up. And I think for the most part, they've shown that this year. They've had a couple of times where they've gotten punched and they've fought their way back in, and they've had to play in some adverse conditions. The game against Genesee a couple weeks ago was not a picture-perfect night to play, and they didn't fold their tents. Friday night was not a picture-perfect night to play. They did not fold their tents. You get them inside, you get them on a flat surface, a clean surface, a dry surface. I really think they have a chance to put up some big numbers. So again, it's going to be on Castleford. Ethan Rowland and Dacian Nunes and Eric Taylor, and they're going to have to make some stops on defense, and they're going to have to make some plays. And they're certainly capable. They've shown that all year long. They are very capable of making some plays on defense, but they're going to have to make a couple here. They don't want to get, I don't think anyway, my opinion, I don't think they want to get into a shootout with Kendrick. I don't know that anybody in the 1A D2 ranks wants to get into a shootout with Kendrick. I think everybody wants to slow Kendrick down. So if Castleford is able to effectively run the football on offense, and if they're able to keep balls in front of them on defense, I think they've got a good chance.
Yeah, Kendrick is very similar to Lapwai, where I think the game plan going in for both Raft River and Castleford is, let's run the ball a little bit, let's control the clock. And I think in both of those matchups, it's imperative that Raft River and Castleford get off to good starts. If you fall behind a Kendrick or a Lapwai, 16-0 early, that it feels like 28-0 with the way they scored. They cash in on almost every possession.
It does, and they don't. When you get down, if you get down 16, 18, 20-0 in an 8-man game, you've got time to come back, but you've got to take some chances and make some things happen. And something that Kendrick has been really good at with their athletes, with their quickness, Ty Kep at quarterback, bear in mind, he's only a sophomore. He's going to be around a couple more years. If you give them an inch, they're going to take a shot to make it a mile. And if they see a little crack, a little bit of daylight, they're going to run to it. And they're going to hit on a few of those plays. And if you're not answering all of those, all of a sudden what was 18-0 becomes 36-0. And then what was 36-0 becomes 48-0. And that's when a game can get away from you. So I think you're right on. I think, if Castleford, it's easy for me to say because I'm over here in the ivory tower. I think I'd want the ball first, and I'd want to pound the ball right down the field, maybe a nice 3, 4, 5-minute drive, score a touchdown, get on top early. Set that tone right away, and don't give Kendrick a chance to do the same thing on the opposite side.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to watch how everything shakes out. My official picks, Kendrick and Carrie, which means Castleford and Dietrich will be meeting up for the championship next week.
I've made my picks in private. I'm not going to publicize them, but I've made my picks in private, and it's for both the Division I and the Division II. I can make arguments for any of the 4 teams to be holding, those banners on championship week next week.
We should have done what they do before the World Series. So David Ortiz, Big Poppy, he's been on the World Series coverage
with an envelope or something.
Yeah, write down your pick and put it in the envelope, and then when we come back next week, we'll open it and we'll see how you did.
Hey, I'm game. I could. I'll shoot it with my cell phone, so that it's legit. But I'll do it, and it could just be something that you and me do, and we fess up to it next week.
Yep, that sounds good. I have not gotten many picks right lately, so I'm due for some correct picks. I feel good about Carrie and Kendrick and Oakley and Raft River, and we'll see if Will's picks differ from mine. And again, every game is going to be on IdahoSports.com in some form or fashion this weekend. To see it all, you can go to the Game Streams tab on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. Semifinal round, I'm very excited. I think we have some fantastic matchups, Will.
Oh yeah, and let's just hope for the sake of football fans everywhere that we reverse that trend. Only one playoff game in 8-man so far has been decided by less than 20 points. I would like to see all 4 be one possession games this weekend, because that is going to be a lot of fun for people to watch, attend, listen to, whatever. I think I would like all 4 games to be somewhere around, 36-32. I'd love it. I'd love it.
And let's reverse the trend of people getting hurt. All right. Let's have everybody stay healthy and make it through a game too.
Carry your rabbit's foot, knock on wood, whatever it is. Enough of these injuries. Let's let everybody get out of these games healthy and have a lot of fun and make some memories.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll be back next week to preview and recap the semifinals and preview the championship matchups. We're almost there. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast, brought to you by the Idaho Division of Public Health. For Will Hoenike, I'm Brandon Baney. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.